now have a round table getting to the heart of the topic today. So it's our OT and industrial systems. So we have 4 specialists, and we're quite lucky. We're going to be hearing, for example, from Michel Ponsanel from Air Liquide, head of OT security. We have Leopold Larios, head of the cyber division from the insurance company Descartes. Stéphane Napo, head of cybersecurity for the SEB group. And Olivier Pontalio, CEO of Almond and Amosis. So to kick off, of course, we've started touching on the subject already early today, but let's talk specifically about some key figures about the types of cyber attacks on OT, because we've been seeing some different figures, financial impact, etc. So, Olivier, perhaps. Hello, everyone. So, I'm happy to be here. So, Olivier Pontalio of the German company Amosis. So, we've been talking about the NIS2 compliance. So we do audits and certifications. And we work all across the cybersecurity chain. So as to your question on the landscape of threats, what we're seeing in the industrial world is a lot of state cyber players. We've seen this state-sponsored attacks. We can see this in Gaza, in the Ukraine, and in the main industries, transport, energy. So then, as concerns OT, for industrial systems, where, here there are apps and servers, Linux, Microsoft, anything like that. These environments, can be attacked, and this can concern an industrial installation. And so these are, operating systems, environments where a business has its partners for software, telemaintenance, etc. And you talked earlier today about the entire supply chain. And the attacks are not only going for IT systems, they're going to production systems as well. So you're saying there's some state-sponsored threats and then very targeted industrial threats. Yes, we are seeing really a growth in the number of these targeted attacks, and the cost of the ransoms, for example, paid around the world in 2023 was over $1 billion paid, and where it was only about 200 million in 2022. And as we've seen, the OT world is increasingly impacted by the IT world. So are there any really targeting directly the installations? Well, I don't have any figures on that. But what I can say is that we're seeing the same types of intrusions and the human factor at play. But I can't really give you any specific distinction between IT and OT attacks. Okay, so this morning we've heard that the attack surface is broader, and this represents increasing exposure. So, Stefan. So, Stefan Napo, head of cybersecurity for SEB company. We're probably in your kitchen. We're in your electrical appliances. You probably have some. 340 million customers a year. We've got IoT, IT for everyone who works with us, and then the plants as well. So when we talk about the exposure surface, well, the threats and attacks reflect our vulnerabilities. In fact, if there are attacks, it's because they are finding open doors or unlocked doors. So the exposure to threat then, you have to, look at where we're coming from. In IT, we had some very nasty wake-up calls. For example, in WannaCry in 2017. We haven't seen that yet in OT. But, what exactly is OT? Well, there's a lot of different things. And so sometimes they were older systems in 2017, so they weren't as connected as they are today. The SCADAs of 2017 weren't as connected, but now they are. Which isn't a bad thing in and of itself. The other thing that's going on is the other systems, fire detection systems, parking monitoring systems, things that were really were not connected, even your electricity panels. So all of this now is exposed. It's a lot more efficient, but it's also exposed. Then you've got all of the other operating systems in place that are how they are connected. Okay. So what about compliance? Of course, it's an obligation, but it's also about protecting the business and, in general, protecting the economy. So, all of these telematics do make we're more exposed. There was these days, we have to continually do, patches all over. In human resources, for example, it's every week we have to be reinforcing the security. But now we're starting to have to do it for the factories as well. Michelle. Tell us, in your business, how old is some of your installations? Okay, well, yes, that's the kind of, okay. So first of all, I work for Air Liquide. You asked about how old our equipment is. Well, there's a bit of everything, in fact. So we have very sensitive equipment, such as positive respiratory pressure machines for people who can't breathe at night when they lay down. So, some really essential services and supplies. And we have 400 industrial sites around the world. And as Stefan was saying, our attack surface now includes a lot of telemaintenance, which we weren't doing at all just 5 years ago. We weren't interconnected. So now it's all exposed. And so, like all industrial companies, we have systems of different generations. And so how then do you ensure security across such a system? As Stefan was saying, you can't just patch everything. You can't patch it as easily as you do your payroll software, for example. And so how do you fix that? Well, we can start with security at the network level if you can't do it at the installation level. And so, yes, so we have some legacy systems in place to answer your question. And so you're saying you're starting with a network-wide approach, right? So you analyze the network, you protect the network. Yes, we will start at the network level. First of all, there's the isolation. One of the first things is to do that separation, so that you can't get from one management system to an industrial system, so you can't do that crossover, so an attack can't get through there. At the same time, we look at the Purdue model, which is considered an industrial standard. Someone earlier talked about this. So we apply that network segregation model. We do have automated systems, of course. We have the PLCs and DCS, so that manage all of the production equipment. And so most of our industrial sites have been covered by this separation. So yes, we have mapped out our systems and decided, what are the risks and how can we cover them depending on the site. So, Stefan, you probably have a similar approach. And then how do you measure the risk? Well, yes, so we are going to look at, we do already have a very strong safety culture, and we are always working very hard to prevent, physical risks, and we have good surveillance systems. But some people, if we look at the OT, well, on how big a scale do we have to work? In fact, because there's we don't have cobots, but all of these tools. Well, you have to map out what do we have. What about our suppliers and partners? What about third parties? So clearly today, the IT asset inventory. We've done that, but it's the OT side where we need to do a complete inventory as well, because you might be missing something. You could have blind spots. Okay, now in a factory, yes, you are, but the hacker comes in, they can see your CCTV on the parking lot, in fact, they can start seeing bits of all of the system there. They might turn off your air conditioning while they're at it, or they can entirely shut down the electricity. So right now, so sometimes we talk a lot about, monitoring and surveillance, which is all fine, but I think we have to be more pragmatic to see, just how far a hacker might be able to go in shutting down a factory. We have for us, we have some connected products that we sell. We have smart, with electronics and software, even vacuum cleaners. But then there's the industrial IoT, unlike Tesla and others. We've got the construction assembly line. There's a whole system that brings in even the nuts and bolts to put together that item. Okay, so those are great automated systems. So, so a lot of this is wireless. Okay, so some things were, attackable from within, but now, the plant's wireless system needs to be protected. So IoT is it's expensive. Of course, you're not buying this from Amazon. These are industrial tools, and they're quite expensive. But trying to secure them is a challenge, and it's true that here, we're a bit behind from the purely IT world. So this is also a problem. We all know how to protect our IT systems now, even though there are still weaknesses, but OT is a much more exposed. And so you were talking about a probes. Well, yes. For example, a casino with hotels and the casino games was suffered a cyber attack coming from an aquarium, and in fact, because the system was open, because people they could remotely check the temperature of the aquarium, but in fact it was also interconnected. The entire hotel system was shut down, and that attack was very highly publicized because it was so surprising. And so you have to really properly set up the segregation of your systems. Michelle? Well, yes, and for us in our group, we, on our IoT devices, we apply the same IT security systems. Okay, so so the purchasing department must stick to these requirements as well. So we, do our asset inventory has to include these. Are there any shadow tools? That aquarium. Well, yes, there can be some surprising weaknesses in any system. And so we have to look at what is connected. Why is it connected? So there's this real-time inventory done of everything that is connected and, let's say, speaking on the network. The smart access and secure edge is sort of like a zero-trust approach. So, you have to protect what you know. Okay, you can't protect yourself necessarily about things that you don't even know about, but you can protect what you know, which is your perimeter, and so there are in any factory you've got maybe 4,000 people, and the laptops are there for maintenance, for updating, and adjusting machinery. So that flow is absolutely essential. Otherwise, we simply couldn't produce our products. So we have to absolutely control that. And so I really believe in these real-time inventories to be able to identify weak spots, because it has to be continually updated, because there are some technologies that are there, even some old ones like NAC that are still interesting. Okay, so there's the inventory. Yes, I totally agree with the need for that. The mapping is absolutely essential. You can use various tools for this, but it's also something that you really do in the field. This is what we see when we go to work for clients. Some of them don't yet fully understand the challenges, and this can take time. So the mapping is really the basic first step. And once you've done that, well, we do a risk analysis, but not like you do it on the IT side. It's a bit different. It's a different environment with its own types of constraints. So we work with those teams. We can't do pen tests the way you do on IT. Some things can't be easily patched, like the payroll system, as somebody said. What we see, we start talking about digital twins, something that can reproduce certain systems so that we can roll out some attack scenarios and then put in place the necessary security plans. Then there are the standards, of course, NIS 1 and 2. All of it is to try to drive all the players toward a higher level of security. Okay, so we've said that you have to start with the mapping and an inventory. Another thing that we're seeing, and I'm sure that Descartes will be able to talk to us about this. So I saw a report from the insurance sector about, well, there's, tell us a bit about what's going on in terms of insurance. Well, let me give you a few figures. First of all, so there's a 2.5 billion in insurance premiums paid currently. How much is devoted to cyber protection? 315 million euros. That's for France. So it's about 12-13% of total insurance premiums. 300 million is really hardly anything. In fact, if you look at some of the big attacks, every year there's maybe 3 or 4 XXL attacks, at about 50 million euros and loss. So if there's only 300 million total spend for France on cyber insurance, well, that's a problem. Okay, so let's look first of all at the level of insurance. If we look at the major corporations, since 2010, we started putting in place some coverage, and we're at about 86% of the major corporations have a cyber protection plan, and in the space of 10 years, we were able to put that in place. So what made that possible? Well, there were major investments, new, really expert CISOs with a serious budget, raising awareness of the risks. And then so often one of the things in the news, WannaCry, etc. And so suddenly everyone wants protection. So we've seen in the past, in 5 years, we're starting to see it in the overall risk mapping of corporations that the cyber question is taken into account. But in these small and medium-sized businesses in France, we've talked about the importance of reindustrialization. There's a lot of hiring in those sectors. It's a very broad coverage across France. So 5,500 medium-sized industries, only 10%, less than 10% of them have cyber coverage. And on top of it, things aren't improving quickly at all. Why not? Well, I'm the insurance company, so, I'm wearing a tie on purpose here. I represent the industry. But we've got the insurance companies with, who are toughened their conditions for offering insurance, or, the 700 700 question lists, which are And so, we worked a lot with IT teams of other companies. I myself worked for Lazar. So what we decided to do at Descartes was to propose a simpler insurance product, focusing on an encryption attack on the industrial tool. So, and so, I agree with everything that's been said so far. But one thing that the insurance company is looking for, they want to know what is the impact of an attack on your production tool. In fact, so our proposal is to cover the loss of operations. And so, traditional insurance, in fact, has, only, isn't really up to the task, whereas our particular insurance product is really looking to cover the shutdown, in fact, and it's a more positive approach. And, the Federation of Insurers has been pushing us to offer this. So we cover the shutdown and response costs, okay? So we tried to cover that well. We're not trying to cover more than that with these particular products. So that's what we're trying to do. And so... how many questions are there then on your questionnaire? 50. Only 50 on our questionnaire. But, yeah, there's about 40 key points. I don't know, is that too much, not enough? Okay. So now we've seen there is some insurance for shutdowns. You've talked about the human factor as being important. Well, yes, it's the person in front of that screen as well. You have to work with the people operating these systems. So there are a lot of new risks there. In industrial information systems, there are new technologies all the time, Linux and Raspberry. So we have to support the people using those environments so that they can very quickly be aware of what's required of them. So training and support are essential for people. And I'm sure the colleagues here agree that the human factor is enormous. They are targeting users, super users. And when, we talk a lot about the state-sponsored cyber threats, but many others are really targeting people. Whether you work in IT or OT, and also people are very present personally on the internet, and it's easy to identify where they work, who they work for, and what type of work they do. And in that sense as well, we need to raise awareness to explain to people what are the risks and the consequences for the company. So that's also hugely important. Have you developed special training programs for the technicians and others? Well, the subjects are the same, it's true, but we do try to contextualize depending on the profile of the people being trained so that the users are recognized. So you have to adapt it each time to their profile so that it is meaningful to them. So it's the same bases.
All right, Michel, when we prepared, you had many very interesting things to say about at Air Liquide is historical. Yes, we're in a company which is, where safety first is the watchword. So we really try to use this corporate culture for cybersecurity. We always start our meetings with a safety moment. This is something that we always do in our companies. We always have a safety moment at the beginning of every meeting in any of our plants. So as the cybersecurity team, in addition to the safety moment, we want to have a cybersecurity moment. And we make available to our cybersecurity correspondents. They have a library of cybersecurity moments, so they can pick and choose from those, about 200 different little excerpts or moments that they can present as part of the cybersecurity moment. This was the things that were done by, we have created this at Air Liquide, and we saw it in another company, and we thought it was interesting to do that, to actually make cybersecurity part of each and every meeting. So it's intrinsically, it's part of what you do at Air Liquide, to talk about safety, and now our objective to make sure that we also talk about cybersecurity. I think the management committee is involved. We have a very strong sponsorship for OT cybersecurity. And you have your 200 little excerpts or scenarios. If you find other attack scenarios, can you enrich your database so that you have an up-to-date base? Well, regarding phishing, all our employees receive 3 to 6 test phishing emails a year, and we measure their capacity to react to these emails. Here I'm specifically talking about a cybersecurity moment, in fact, an awareness-raising moment. And we've created a short awareness seminar, which is 30 to 45 minutes, to learn what cybersecurity is in OT. Stefan? What are you doing at SEB? Do you have an active approach to raise awareness among your teams? Yes, there are the same possibilities, for everyone to attack. So I think most businesses are doing the same thing. The human factor is at the heart of cybersecurity, and it's one of the weak links, of course. So we have to see the human being as a factor of security, not as a factor of problems. You can't point to the human being and say that's a problem. So you have to make them part of the solution. So OT, people use technologies, but with a lot of IT involved. But there's, at IT, there's not the same risk awareness as in OT, because there are fewer interactive screens as well. We have computer-assisted production, for example, but we have fewer Windows screens. If you have 50,000 workers, they don't all have their own computer, for example, because it's not their direct working tool. So now to come back to the deductible. The deductible of the insurance deductible is constantly increasing. So I'd like to come back to that and talk about the insurance contracts. There are more and more insurance contracts available, and there's something that Leopold said which is absolutely vital, which is the notion of impact. Of course, to secure a football pitch, you have to know its dimensions. So you need to make sure that everything is continuous and consistent over the whole pitch, as it were. So there's a tool called the business impact analysis. It's not very expensive. We've had it for a while. And, very few people actually do the business impact analysis to understand what to insure. So, you have the heart, the lungs, the brain. If you've protected your scanners, but you haven't protected your electricity, it means you haven't protected anything. Just with 2 unsecured protocols, your energy supply can be cut off. So you're going to wait 29 minutes and then your chain will just die. So we have to do these BIAs. These analyses are not very expensive, and it's really valuable. You have IoTs, OTs, you have thousands of them, but you have then a list of vital technologies which is only 10 to 50 items. So if you actually reduce the complexity, if you do this business analysis, then you will be able to have a simpler outlook. You have to have a focus, and this BIA is a very important factor. You will save time, you will gain relevance. So concretely, what is the major source of income? What is the lifeblood of your company? And the servers in your company, for example, sometimes there's some pieces of equipment of hardware that are, gathering dust somewhere. But in fact, if those aren't working, then your whole company can be down. So there's also the RTO, the return time objective. So it should have an order of priorities. What am I going to secure first? The BIA is important, this impact. We work a lot on protecting everything, but we forget to have a hierarchy of what's important. I think that Leopold is going to talk to us a little bit about the insurance approach. Maybe ask for the next slide to be displayed. Now, to come back to what Stefan was saying, yes, of course, the deductible is a real issue in insurance. It's typical of frequency. It's difficult for insurers to deal with frequency. And the first reaction an insurer will have is to increase the deductible. It's a bit of an ostrich process, So it's a good idea because financially it makes it possible for the insurer to secure his finances. But it's a bad idea because you can't see what's happening underneath. The industry will know how many incidents there were, what losses that involved, whereas the insurer has had a black box system. And then there's a risk of amplitude of scope. So for us at Descartes Insurance, to illustrate what I'm saying, I tried to simplify with this slide. The explanation is the following. We try to use all the information that exists and that is available and to use the value of that information. The first thing we used is a board of cyber. So we use the external vulnerability scan, this you all know, and we extract this information and you inject it into our model, and we were among the first insurance companies to use this information to price and to qualify the risk. Then we look at the key assets. So all this work to identify the assets is essential. We absolutely need it. Then we have signals which come from our questionnaire. There are about 50 of them. But everything I've heard this afternoon, or Group SEB, Air Liquide, these are clients I would love to have in the future because there's a level of awareness among the management that seems to be very high. You can see that the awareness is something that's important throughout the company, and there's a native segregation process. It's secured, so that our approach is therefore easier because we're working with a stakeholder who has a priority for their action plan and who has a set of priorities in the right order. And we use this in our internal model. We have about 100 data scientists and engineers working with us at Descartes. So we create a parametric model. We're working mostly on climate phenomena, but now we have created a model for something other than climate phenomena. So that is cyber insurance. So in cyber insurance, we are going to throw the dice 50 times to simulate events, to see what is the price of the risk. And depending on the guarantee amount that will be asked for by the company, we will identify, for example, the company, the plant in Brittany generates 100,000 euros loss a day. So we will determine ahead of time, before we subscribe, if the RTO is 5 days. So Stefan can say, I have a 5-day RTO on this plant. So we can say the first 5 days, well, that's your deductible. But as from the 6th day, we will cover you for 20 days. And for 20 days, if he has an incident, he is going to receive 20 times 100,000 euros. And he'll just have to explain that he had a ciphering attack, that his production, that the production PLC is down. And so we're going to call in a remediation team. Maybe they don't have everything they need in-house. Maybe teams like the teams that Olivier has will come in to help. And then once everything is rebooted, as it were, well, the chief financial officer is going to say, well, I have a loss of 2 million euros, and we'll send a check within 21 days. So that is the big difference. The best compensation time I've had has been 6 to 9 months, and I called the insurer every day. That was in the past, you know. When you close accounts, you have to go and see auditors. You have to say to them, well, we have insurance, but we don't know if the insurance is going to work. When you're talking to your auditors, it's not great. So, in fact, the important thing, it's great to have an insurance company who says to you, I might pay out less than the others, but at least you know when you're getting your money. That seems clear. Stefan, are you satisfied with the answer concerning the deductibles? Yes, we need insurance, of course, in the risk approach. You have risks that you can reduce. You have risks that you can accept. And mostly people stop there. But you also have risks that you can transfer to an insurance company. Of course, be careful, because everything cannot be transferred. And in insurability, insurance companies can always advise you very well. And the risks concerning your continuity of business, those are risks that can be insured very well. And there are risks, you know, that are covered in the large groups for cybersecurity, IT. But that's not so much the case in the mid-sized, small and medium-sized businesses. It's more difficult for them, so they might need an auditing firm or to try and recalculate, for example, deciphering. So people feel, that they are victims and they don't know that treatments are possible before they pay the ransom. So, of course, this is a legal discussion, but insurance is one of the levers of cybersecurity. People will shoot at you, but some attacks can kill you outright. Many boards have statistics from last month or the month before. But but if you're looking at the weather report, are you looking at last week's weather report? No, what you want is the weather forecast if you want to take your boat out onto the water. So, it's very useful to talk to the insurance company. Actuaries know how to do this. Since, Greek times, they've known how to look at the scope of the risk and insure in terms of probabilities. So calculate the impact, and then the insurance company will tell you what is transferable. And the insurance company, if you're not dead when someone's shot at you, you can get back to work much faster and with less wounds, with fewer wounds. So we've talked about mapping, human factor, insurance. Now, regarding measures that you take, more recent measures, I heard about zero trust, behavioral analysis. What are you implementing, Michel, Stéphane, and Olivier? We're not at the zero trust is an ambition, but it's not something that we have in place today. Perhaps we can start with smaller measures or, larger measures that can have an impact. Talking about the human factor, we talked about remote maintenance. We have tried to reproduce for remote maintenance of our industrial systems the same thing as we do in real life. In real life, if you go to a plant, you're never alone. You have, and of course, you are equipped, you've got someone with you, and you've got your personal protective equipment. What we implemented for distant access is the same thing. So a third party, for example, coming cannot, of course, be on the site alone. Has to be invited by an Air Liquide employee, and that Air Liquide employee will share his session with the third party and will see everything the third party is doing during the whole time that third party is on our information system. And when the Air Liquide employee logs off, in fact, the third party will be automatically disconnected. So it is not zero trust, but it's a secure accompaniment process. And you can explain this. We can reproduce the same thing we do in real life in the digital field. So if you have outside people coming and working on cyber aspects, are they accompanied by someone from Air Liquide? Wasn't on MSSP. I was on maintenance of industrial systems. MSSP cannot go to people who are working with our SOC do not have access to the industrial system. They only have access to the logs that are created by the industrial system. So these logs, well, there'll be a number of playbooks, a number of predefined attack scenarios. I'm not saying we're finished. We're busy reviewing these scenarios and working on them with, because a scenario in the world of OT must be reviewed, and you're not going to react in the same way on an industrial system as you would on a management system. So we have specialized. So you have. Do you have mixed playbooks? The same event will give rise to a different reaction. The playbook that we're going to work on in the industrial world, if you have a ransomware, the first reaction of the playbook is going to be disconnect that personal computer from the rest of the network. But on an industrial process, that can have an impact on real life, and we have a safety-first approach. Cyber will act causes to consequences that we already know. Consequences on safety in a plant, of course, we all know what those are. And with cyber, you are adding new causes to those consequences. So the playbook will not be the same. The playbook might be to stop the connection between the factory and the rest of the world so that the malware does not propagate within the group. That's an example, perhaps. In IT, you just disconnect. In OT, you don't disconnect right away because you don't know what the consequences are going to be in real life. You will adapt it and do something different. Olivier, yes, zero trust, yes, it's more a philosophy of practice. It's not something that you can just apply in every case. You might, if there'll be a hacker would dream of such denial of service. If you have zero trust, it could lead to a denial of service situation. So, but of course we can't say that we're not going to change anything. Zero trust is remote maintenance, for example. That's a real topic. Remote maintenance is people you don't know who can work on at any time of the day or night, because with Siemens, Rockwell, Schneider, or Hirschmann in a factory, you have people you don't know, but they are going to ensure the continuity of your business. So you don't know if it's Peter, Paul, or Jack, but you're happy to have somebody who is working on one of your presses or whatever. That is a reality. So we have to talk of PAM, Privilege Access Management. So, privilege access management, the techniques that are implemented with human surveillance, like Michel, because Michel, their company, of course, works with gas. So we have to have this sort of surveillance in their industry, but we need to have it also in more conventional industries, because the systems were not designed for hacking. So imagine, for example, the press can continue and crush someone's arms and hands. If you disconnect that system, or if you do something, if you hack into that system to do that. So zero trust is when you actually think the tools themselves, when you design them, think of all the applications that go with them. So if the sensors, there's no arm, so the press can come down, but, it was designed like that. Industry is often very wise and very careful in its design. So the output, because at OT we work more with the output. So in industry we want to make sure that safety is there, but by design you need to make sure that zero trust is there and know when the machine has been hacked, for example. And also, we'll say, the machine is stopped or data has been stolen. In industry, all four of us know that maybe not even a single gram of data will be stolen, but that an entire global network of factories, of plants can be stopped. So it's not just an issue of data. Processing will stop before the input and the output point. So that's all. Well, a pump will stop. Okay, well, a pump has stopped. But if there's something toxic in there and it's going back into the river of the neighboring municipality, that's a Seveso risk for some. Or for Michel, if you have something that overheats, well, there's gas right next to that at Air Liquide. So all of this cybersecurity is not just working on governance and silos. You have to look at the transversality and the value chains. There's IT, OT, and safety risks. Olivier? What we haven't perhaps discussed yet, and that but follows on, is regulation. You know, the regulator, security standards. We talked about that with the directive, the NIS2 directive, with working with third parties, qualifications and certifications. There are guidelines from the French authority. They apply to the world of OTs. So I think today awareness has been raised. We were just talking about the NIS2 directive. Now it's 15,000 companies who are covered by the second directive. So we're covering the entire value chain now. So I think that we need to be quite pragmatic in our approach and try to make the most of the industrial world with their safety values, and those are rooted in the whole world of industry, and then bring in the cyber culture, information, awareness, and let's not reinvent the wheel every time. So there can be severe consequences. So you can't update an industrial system like you update an office automation application. So there are guidelines. You have to follow those guidelines. And I think that if we sum up a little bit what we've been saying, the mapping, we were talking about third parties, access, remote maintenance, the Network and Information Security Directive, the whole trust ecosystem. If the third party is hacked, of course, then by rebound, the hackers will enter the information system, whether it's IT or OT in this case. The consequences can be disastrous. So we have to look at this ecosystem. We have to strive to ensure compliance with legislation, with the Network and Information Security Directive, for example, and with the BIA as the impact assessment that Stefan was talking about. I think it's to see what are the probabilities, what's maximum, what's acceptable for an information system, and all the components of the information system. And if you ask yourself these questions, I think you can have a good overview of the impact and take the right measures and do things in the right order. So the whole risk analysis process, and of course the training, awareness, qualifying, certifying products. And we were talking a little bit earlier, but we're starting to see it. But it can be quite expensive, digital twins. Digital twins to simulate attack scenarios on environments where we couldn't do it in real life. And what about behavioral analysis and artificial intelligence? Can you use those? I know it's a buzzword, but artificial intelligence, we see it from the attack side. The defense side, we see the IT. On the OT front, the maturity is different, and the way in which we address this topic is different. So whether you're IT or OT, the attacker is going to use the same technology, the same way of doing it. Is going to make the best use they can of artificial intelligence. I think it's maybe too early for us in OT. It's coming, though. Artificial intelligence is in industry. Industry is always a pioneer in the adoption of many technologies. Concretely, it's arriving. It's arriving in a way that was intended and in a way that we're being subjected to. If you have a SOC, there's machine learning. There are chatbots coming in to raise awareness in factories, in plants, or in office spaces. So the thing we need to be careful about is the connection, the way the artificial intelligence is connected with the rest. So we have security of channels, SSL, to the security of data and applications. So if you're talking to an application, it will give you the whole database. But if there's an interpreter called Cuckoo, hello there, I'm chatbot, and you say, give me the database, and it will work. So you have you can have injections talking business with a chatbot. You can actually have exfiltrated data. So if you think that AI is not connected to everything, that was more or less true until last year, but now everything is connected to everything. So the AI of the partner, if you don't want AI in your own in your own operations, you might have things that are triggered automatically. AI is a man-machine interface like any other. So you first have to treat the job interviews for AI to make sure AI is going to do the job that you want it to do, and also to discuss the access privileges of AI. Like any other administrator, AI has access to almost everything. To federate a response that is an interesting and worthwhile response. So if someone takes over your AI that has access to everything, well, you can have a problem. But we don't need to be afraid of AI, I don't think, It's very relevant. It changes the way we do things. I believe in it, but I'm also wary of it. So we need to, it's just finding the right balance between the risks and the profit. It's another console. It's very interesting to optimize industrial productivity. So I think manufacturing really needs AI, and it's not necessarily going to reduce the number of jobs. I don't think. I think we've seen that AI changes the job types, but doesn't reduce the number of jobs. That's another discussion, I think. Yes. But AI is with us, and it's here to stay. And all these new technologies, what about deepfake attack technology? If you have remote maintenance, imagine the disaster of an image of the boiler room and the red to green. If you have someone, if it's going towards the red and someone believes it's going to green, with a remote maintenance deepfake, I can do it very easily. I can have a factory could just blow up because of remote maintenance and a deepfake in remote maintenance. So this will lead me to the last question about risks. The last question is the last brick I think we need to put into place is a resilience plan. Michelle was talking about it earlier, targeted attacks that are very difficult to resist and defend yourselves against. So you have a resilience plan with regular drills. Yes, the industrial model at Air Liquide, well, we distribute gas to hospitals, to major industrialists. So we have a resilience model. And as I said, cyber puts in new causes, but its consequences we were already aware of. The continuity of business at Air Liquide is already in place, and we've added new cyber scenarios to business continuation plans that already exist. Just a word on AI. Yes, it's, fundamental, it's essential. Clearly, in all discussions, we talk about AI. But the important thing is always the data, the compute. Where is it computed? Where is it compiled? I'm quite surprised, and I think that we're not really focusing on the computing part. So let's focus on who's going to have access to the data, who's going to process the data. Because if we want Google to become our competitor, irrespective of activity, well, that's where we're going. Just on an optimistic note for the end, are we preparing the roundtable, Stefan? Yes, cybersecurity is not the police. It is a service. Please see it as a service. For us as practitioners in cybersecurity, you need to see it as a service, and take it out of the culture of secrecy, So it's absolutely essential to see it as something essential. And the message of hope, I think, is that we are providers of sustainable, of lasting solutions. It's important. Cybersecurity is a way of having lasting solutions in digital, and to see us as providers of hope and of trust. Thank you. Let's give them a round of applause.